league meeting.
Good evening, Jack. Thank you very much for joining us on another one of Pro Coach's Zoom chats. We'll get into the questions very, very quickly, but can you just kick off by telling us about your new haircut, please, mate?
Oh, that you're not a fan?
It's not one of your better do's.
I don't think you should be sledging people for their choice of lids, mate.
Does not get any smoother than this, pal. But brings us on to a very, very, very relevant nickname of Headband Warrior. Just want to explain, when did you start wearing that headband? Was that a genuine hair issue or was that a sweat thing?
Neither. I started wearing it for a bit of a laugh when I was in my teens. On a Sunday game, I put an old school white button-up shirt on and a headband, and I undid the shirt down to sort of your navel, my mid-chest. Pretended I was Dennis Lilly for the day. I sort of didn't have any chest hair or gold chains though. And then it just kind of stayed. I was carried on wearing the headband. My hair got really long for a few years, and it actually had a function and a purpose. But it's got used to it now. But yeah, it does have a function. But I suppose I've got used to the image now, haven't I? So. Were you
a little bit miffed when all the England boys started wearing them after lockdown and made them cool, and you were actually 10 years before that?
Right, it took a global pandemic to make something that I'd been doing for years fashionable. Yeah. Sums me up. That absolutely sums me up, doesn't it?
They might have a story in there somewhere. And about the ferret, the other nickname, the ferret, where's that from? What's that about?
Just when I started playing adult cricket as a 11, 12-year-old, I was really small and sort of ran around everywhere like a little ferret, apparently. So a couple of the guys I played with, like the adults, just nicknamed me Ferret, and it kind of stuck from there, really. So what I get called when I go back home, really back into the murky depths of Oxfordshire.
Okay, so mate, we'll get into it. It's a nice little way in, is this? Lev's arranged these questions beautifully again for us. So the reason I love your story is because it's not the conventional journey into cricket. So can you just give us a quick rundown as to how you found yourself, one, playing professional cricket, and then obviously two at Yorkshire?
Yeah, mate, yeah. Evening, everyone, by the way. Yeah, so I grew up with an older brother and a dad that both played cricket, so I was always around it and aware of it from a very young age. I think from the age of sort of 3 or 4, I had a bat ball in my hand, and started as a 7-year-old playing down at the local cricket club on sort of Sunday mornings, and got quite good quite quickly, probably from having an older brother and friends around to compete with all the time, and just soaking it all in, watching a lot on TV and watching my dad play every weekend, twice a weekend. And as you get older, you get better. But I never really, although I love sport and I love playing cricket, I never really seriously took it, thought about being a professional that much. I think I like the idea of it, but I never thought it actually happened because I was from Oxfordshire. I went to a normal little state school, didn't play a lot at school, sort of slipped through the system, wasn't really doing a lot other than playing Oxfordshire youth cricket and village cricket, really, even up until the age of sort of 20, I was still doing that. But I'd always been like a regular performer for Oxfordshire's youth teams, and I made my debut for the senior team as a 19-year-old. I was always told to sort of get fitter. You might not be quick enough, you might not be big enough, fit enough, you know. So I didn't really take it too seriously, and then I sort of went through a growth spurt. Went to Australia one winter, played grade cricket in Perth, which toughens you up, and came back with a sort of mean streak and a bit of more of a competitive personality, I suppose, and wanted to sort of try and be the best version of myself and play the highest standard I could, even if it was just minor counties regular. So I started playing for Oxford in the home counties Premier League, became an Oxfordshire regular, and I started bowling quite quickly at that point. Up until the age of 20, I bowled with the keeper up. I bowled little away swingers, which is, you know, really strange to look back on. Never even tried to bowl quick. And then I got a bit fitter and grew a little bit and tried a bit harder. and it all went from there, really. And I got scouted, asked if I wanted to trial for Surrey as a sort of 23, 24-year-old. And then they rejected me after a couple of games, and I ended up at Northants. Didn't really think much would come of it, and they offered me a second team game. And I took 6 wickets, scored 40-odd. Played 2 more second team games that summer. And I got offered a contract out of nowhere. And I was working a full-time job, 9 till 5, but I was a salesman for, I think, 4 years at that time. So I thought cricket had passed me by as a 24-year-old, just playing it because I liked playing it and I was, getting better at it, and I wanted to try and play the highest standard possible without really knowing where the ceiling was. So there was no real pressure on myself. And I just got a contract and I just, obviously signed it, thinking I might have a year in the pro game. And 13 years later, I've played for 3 different counties, won a couple of championships, played England Lions, and hobbling around now, but still want to play for a bit longer.
Incredible, mate. It always amazes me that at any point, you've got in the early 20s. The conventional way, we've had Puds on, we've had Brez on, we've had Gailey, we've gone all the way through the county age group systems. Poisey went through the university route, and then yours is unique. Salesman to professional cricketer overnight. Unbelievable. Just goes to show it's always worth trying to better yourself, keep training, keep trying hard, because you just never know. Interesting. Go back to the point where you made about bowling with the keeper up and all the rest of it. Was that for your accuracy? Because we try and encourage, if you want to be a quick bowler, bowl quick, and that was Pud's advice as well. So did you take the gas off for accuracy? Did you sacrifice that, or we just?
So yeah, mate. But I was also like, it's hard to believe, but I was tiny as a kid. And for anyone on here that is small for their age, or all their peers they all look up to, and then a bit behind them physically, don't worry about that, because people mature at different ages. And I was honestly tiny. I was the smallest boy in my year at school. Even got to the age of 17, 18, I hadn't had a proper growth spurt. But I was deadly accurate, and I always had the skills. And my other way with the keeper up was I was treated as a spinner by the rules of the umpires, so I was allowed to bowl more overs. So I didn't have to. So I used to sort of play up to it a little bit, because our keepers were really good at club cricket and sort of county age group stuff. So with spinners, you could bowl, I think it was 21 or 25 in a day or something, without coming off after 5, 6, 7 over spells. Whereas young bowlers have to bowl 5 overs and come off, don't you?
Well, even some of them, yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to bowl more, and because the keeper was up, and I wasn't particularly seen as a fast bowler, even though I was bowling seamers or swingers, I ended up bowling 20 plus overs a game, and it obviously helped the team out as well, because I was the most accurate bowler and the new ball bowler in the team. So I used to pick up, get a fair few stump ins and caught extra cover and things like that. And it was, you can imagine sort of facing someone that in club cricket now would be quite frustrating, couldn't it? But I think as you get older, and because I did always try and bowl fast in the nets or at training, I did think I've got some pace, but never really tried to. It's not until you get bigger and stronger and fitter, and you sort of, you develop at a different age. And I suppose with all the accuracy and skills, I had sort of the basics there. But you had a bit of pace to it, and boom, it sort of went on to a new level quite quickly.
Nice. Just noticed your mate CT's just joined us. CT, just mute, pal, just in case anything happens at your end.
Hello, Chris.
You, bud.
All right.
All right, Pet.
So Ryan wants to know, Brooks, who was your inspiration when you were growing up?
So I grew up watching cricket in the 90s, which for a lot of people on here won't remember that. Also, won't even be aware of it, really, apart from a little bit of footage now and again. So my 3 heroes, in terms of professionals watching them, would have been Curtly Ambrose, Alan Donald, and Darren Gough. They were all obviously very highly skillful and fast bowlers, but they all had massive sort of personality, and there was someone that you knew you're aware of when you're watching them. So I think I've kind of incorporated that into my game, trying to have a bit of personality and a bit of character on the field, as well as trying to be as good as possible, basically. Obviously not as good as those 3, but Goughy was obviously the English hero. He sort of carried England's bowling attack for a long time. Used to slog a few. And Donald and Ambrose were just both quite mean, scary, nasty fasties. And Ambrose never used to say anything, and Donald used to be quite chirpy. And I used to copy Alan Donald as a kid and wear zinc. I used to turn up and play village cricket with zinc all over my face as a kid. But then, obviously my older brother, he was a big influence on me. He's 10 years older than me, so sort of growing up with someone that much older. And he never used to let me beat him. I knew I was getting quite good when I was beating him, and it was obviously very competitive battles with him. And just as you get to an adult, I suppose you're just sort of inspired by what you see on TV in that 2005 Ashes series, the likes of Flintoff and Harmison, Hoggard, Jones, those bowlers and those players from that series. Like many people probably of a certain similar age would have sort of gripped you with cricket fever sort of at the time.
Yeah, and hopefully that happens again with the test matches now being back on Channel 4.
Well, I think the World Cup in 2019, that win would have sort of gripped the nation in it, and the way England won some real close games.
Yeah.
Hopefully a lot of people started getting into cricket off the back of that, and England's women won the World Cup a few years before that as well, didn't they?
Yeah, I think once all this madness is over, I think we're going to go back into a boom, or I hope we do. Give the game a future. So you wouldn't say your journey into professional cricket, or even once you got there, was anything due to a coach or one in particular? It was because of things that you learned probably out of the professional game that gave you the foundations to excel quickly.
Yeah, I think I've worked with so many coaches over the years, as youth coaches and going to camps, and probably a lot of what pro coaches do now. I'd have done a lot of that as a kid myself with various people, or schools or what have you. But I was a bit of a sponge really. I was just taking in so much information. I just like playing cricket and bowling. Any chance to play with mates or get outside and play, I was always just bowling a ball or hitting a ball, even if it was on my own. So you just soak up so much from when people talk to you or teach you a few things. I loved playing games. I loved competing. And then as you get older, you sort of take in more sort of slightly different advice that works on your technical game or your physical side of it, getting fitter. A big thing for me as a kid was I wasn't fit enough. So once I started getting fitter and stronger, and I started listening to people who'd been there and done it, my club side had a few ex-pros and guys who were really talented and sort of could see something in me, but I didn't probably have the right attitude at times. Still going out on Friday nights and having a bit of a laugh. And cricket to me was always having fun. But these guys made me take it a bit more seriously. Like, you've got some ability, don't waste it. And I suppose some people take heed, and some people will be like, no, I just I don't really see a future. So luckily, took the kick up the arse and did something about it.
Is it still fun? I know you said then, it would just used to be fun. Is it still fun?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, most of the time, I would say the vast majority of my career, I've been really lucky. I haven't had too many downtimes, too many sort of periods where things haven't gone mine or the team's way. Like playing at Northants to begin was fantastic. Playing with good people, there was never much pressure on the team. No one expected us to win anything, and I sort of outgrew that after a few years. But I was just loving playing cricket for a living, and day in, day out, you get to keep fit, you get to travel, you get to play cricket all the time. And I know when I have a bad day, still now, I can come home and be a bit annoyed or frustrated and angry for an hour or something. On the off chance I do get angry, and I'll be like, well, what else could I be doing? I could still be sat in my office as a salesman, or I could be doing no end of jobs that wouldn't be as fun or enjoyable. We are really lucky to do this for a living. So even a bad day isn't a bad day in the real world.
I'm going to jump to a question, mate, that will coming down the line because it's perfect. So Jack's asked, what motivates you when you have down days? Now, I'm assuming, let's talk about that in two parts. One, on the field, when you have a bad day on the field, and two, lockdown. Let's cover both those. How have, because it must be quite an entertaining place in your head during lockdown, I'll say. But if you have a bad game, bad spell, how do you cope with that? And then how have you gone on with lockdown? Yeah,
well, me and my missus have survived each other, so that's a bonus, isn't it?
Absolutely.
She's not here at the minute either, so I can get away with saying stuff like that. I would say pre-lockdown, just my general main motivation for my whole career was trying to play for England, getting out of bed every day and saying, right, what do I need to do? I'm playing cricket for a living, make the most of this. It doesn't last forever. And my main aim was always play for England. Even now, getting on to 37 is not likely to happen, really. I need about 50 people to get injured or retire. But it's still like, not even the fact that you want to play for England, it's how good can I be? How can I still improve? Still want to win trophies? Still want to try and impact on this Somerset team? Still, I don't just want to drift. I've never been one to drift. If I drifted, I probably would have never left Northants. If I drifted again at Yorkshire, I probably would have stayed there maybe as well. But during lockdown, it's been tough, don't get me wrong, but I really enjoyed the first bit of it. It was quite refreshing just to switch off, because I hadn't had a chance to switch off for quite a few years. I think it's important just to get away from cricket and get away from the game at times. Our winters are usually still quite busy as well. So I did enjoy and start trying to plan for the future a little bit and looking into other avenues of career options. Just trying to be proactive. But just ticking over the fitness was great for me, just me keeping fit and trying to do what I could. That was my main motivation, to make sure I could come back as fit as I could to start the season, because we weren't able to do any cricket training. So it was just a case of staying as fit as possible, which I managed to do really, and get through the summer before I had my surgery.
Good man. So leads nicely into Noah's question, who's just looking to get a bit information about your training routine. How often do you train? What type of training is it? Granted, now it'll be very different to normal because you're going through that intense rehab, but on a normal pre-season, what would your day look like?
Yeah, so we come back in at sort of early November now these days. When I first started playing, it was almost a 7-month job really. Well, probably when Dave Wainwright was playing, it was probably just 6-7 months of the year, and then you pop off in September and you come back in February, March time, or what have you. Whereas now it's 12 months of the year really. You get a month off and then you're straight back into it again, which is great because it's a full-time job and there's loads of things you could be doing around the world. You could play franchises and everything. But when we come back in, it's Monday to Friday from beginning of November till beginning of March, and then once March kicks in, it's like your proper pre-season, and you forget days of the week, bank holidays, and all that doesn't matter anymore. It's there's a program and a process to build up for the season. More often than not, you don't really train a couple of days in a row. You might have 2 days in a row and then a day off, and then you always do a gym session as well on a training day. So Monday to Friday, you might be in the gym 4 days a week, and also cricketing 3-4 of those days a week as well. So the days you're in for 3 or 4 hours, and then when you're not in, you get a full switch off, let your body reset, do whatever you want to do, and then make sure you're on it when you come back in.
Nice. And you just want to give everyone an idea of what you've gone through over the last sort of 2 months. That picture you sent me in your hospital bed, you had both feet in bandages or cast and one hand / arm.
Yeah, I've had a bit of a mad one last year. So I've struggled with a lot of Achilles niggles through my whole career. And last year it kind of got to the point where I needed to have quite a serious surgery in at least one of them. I ended up having surgery in both of them. And also on top of that, the last game of the year last year at Lords, where we played Essex in the final of the Bob Willis Trophy, which we didn't win. I managed to land on my thumb in the field and tore the ligaments in my thumb, pretty much clean off the bone, which was fun. So I was hobbling and holding my arm in a in a bit of a sore way. So I had 2 different surgeries. I was in a boot for my right Achilles. I was hobbling around on crutches, and I had my right hand in a pot as well. So I was down to one limb for about 6 to 8 weeks, which was fun. I was pretty much bedbound for 9 weeks leading up to Christmas, which was testing. There wasn't much going on in the world, don't get me wrong. I wasn't missing anything. It's just the fact I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even go out for a walk. It was a nightmare even trying to get to the toilet or go make a drink or anything. So it was probably the most challenging part of my career, and it challenges your personal life as well a little bit at times. But I knew there was always light at the end of the tunnel, and I was determined to get back into a good shape. But that's part of being an athlete, a bit of a sportsman, isn't it? It's your body will get hurt, it will get injured. You're going to get, it's just how serious they are and how much you want to sort of come back from it and make sure they get right again. You get some people get injured a lot all the time. Some people get nothing for the whole career. I've been quite lucky, but this one's obviously just built up over time. And touch wood, I'll be all right for this summer.
Absolutely. How did you get through those dark times then? What tips have you got for young'uns? Because I'm sure whether it be injury, boredom, bad weather, and we're stuck inside, whatever it is, how did you get through that? You said you focused on getting back fit, but when you were in those slumps, how did you overcome those thoughts?
Ultimately, this is my last year as a cricketer on contract, so ultimately I want to play for longer and get another contract. So I've got to prove that I'm fit enough and good enough to carry on. So my main aim was to make sure I got this right, got the surgery went well, looked after myself, and I get back as fit as I can and give myself the best chance to carry on playing. Or I go off into the real world and get another job. I'll be knocking on pro coach's door or something like that.
Doors always open. You've done such a good job on the tours. You're like a part of the extended furniture now. Don't worry, doors open.
Well, I just got to shave my head, and I'll probably get a lifetime contract with you, shouldn't I? So, yeah, I mean, different motivations. You want to a bit of personal pride comes into it. You don't want to let yourself down. You don't want to let your team down by coming back out of shape and just saying, "Oh, you've not looked after yourself." I've taken great pride in my fitness for my whole career. I suppose there's always been that little bit niggling away because of my background, my amateur background. I always see myself as a bit of a clubby. I've almost had to work a bit harder at the basics of fitness, your fielding, your batting, to sort of keep up with everyone else. My fitness is something you can always control. Your attitude is another thing you should always be able to control. You can't help if you're not quite good enough. Batting, bowling, you can always do a little bit to try and improve, but if you're providing a lot of energy and doing everything you can fitness-wise, it does help in the long run. And other people will take notice of that, and they'll see how much effort and if your attitude is right, it gets you a lot further than maybe someone who's a bit lazier, even if they're a bit talented.
Yeah, I heard one of the best things we heard from Richie Pyre when talking on tour, that fielding is just an attitude. It's simple as that. Yes, there's some skill involved, but it's a massive attitude thing as well. And on a chat last night, the whole package you were just discussing there about being a good teammate and things like that is just be a good bloke, whether you're on the field or off the field. Look after you as a person first, and the rest will look after itself.
Yeah, well, I've played in enough teams now, professional teams and amateur teams, and seen and heard a lot of things on the circuit. And you get a reputation in cricket for being a bad bloke or someone who's not quite a team player. It's tough to get rid of. Whereas if you go the other way and people realise that this guy always puts a lot of effort in and never gives up, those will get you quite far as well. And I've seen a lot of talented people who don't have the right attitude not make it. And I'm sure you have, Wayne has, I'm sure Ben has, been around professional environments. You see people with the right attitude. They might not be the most skillful or the most talented cricketers, but they get every last ounce out of themselves. They're always wanting to get better. And that can almost drag you through a professional career more than...
Well, look at Gailey.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, Butch Dingle. I never thought he'd end up being a professional cricketer, but yeah. But his attitude, and he used to probably rub some people up the wrong way. But someone like him who wanted to be tested and make the most out of his ability. He's not a rat, but he wasn't a bad player. But then I've seen some pretty talented players over the years not make the most of some really good ability and not play for as long, or not have the success they probably should have. And then you put the two together, like a Joe Root, who works harder than anyone else and is also always looking to get better, and he's got the talent and ability to go with it. And you see what he's doing at the minute. You end up being a world-class cricketer, don't you?
Yeah, but the motivation, the drive, the hard work and all that, whether you're at school, in your sports team or at work, that's going to put you in good stead, just being a good bloke across the board.
But there's no excuse not to be a good person. I think what this last 12 months should have probably taught us is be aware of potentially what other people are going through. Reflect on how you can be a better person to your close ones and to just your people around you. You don't know what people are going through, so there's no excuse really not to be a good person and do a good deed every day.
Good man. There you go. Jack's takeaway. There you go. Alfie wants to know, for a fast bowler specific, is there any body parts that you focus on to train, obviously to try and either make the most of speed or injury prevention?
I think all fast bowlers need to have strong legs and glutes and strong core. You don't need to necessarily be the muscle beach, biceps, chest and arms, but definitely with a strong core and strong legs. And if you're a good runner, and with cricket as well, it's a bit of long distance and sprinting for seamers. It's explosive power over a long period of time. So you need to have your good solid base where you can run for a good solid 5K at a solid time. But you also need to be able to sprint over and over and over again over a long period of time. So you need to practice sort of both of those aspects going through, probably more so the sprints, and do your long distance ones maybe once a week. And just your general fitness. You get fitter and stronger as you get older. So don't try and go balls out early. Just get a good solid base.
You play other sports as a kid? Did you play anything else as a kid?
Yeah, so I was a county badminton player as a young teenager. I played a bit of football. Because I was really small. I never really got into it. I love rugby, but I was just so small. I'd get crunched, and I probably wouldn't be standing now, let alone playing cricket. My brother played rugby and broke every bone in his body pretty much. So, a little bit of football, a little bit of badminton, snooker. That really helped my patience and stamina. And yeah, I mean, I was quite lucky really. I was a really good sort of runner. I should have taken up athletics seriously. I was a decent sprinter as a kid, and if I'd taken it up as a teenager, I probably would have been fitter at a lot younger age. But it was never really something I wanted to pursue, really, to be honest.
I remember Mark, Chief Exec at Yorkshire, Mark Arthur, when you first arrived at the county, one of the biggest compliments he gave you after the first 12 months was your body transformation. Let's say you weren't quite the athlete who signed from Northants. 12 months later, the ferret's strutting round and is proud of what is, the gym work's obviously paid off. Did you notice that difference, and how did that help you?
Yeah, well, because I joined with a bit of my Achilles was not in a great place at the time. And luck at all the good work I did at Yorkshire, the physio and everything, my Achilles got better in that first sort of 18 months. But when I initially joined, I wasn't running much, so therefore I was probably a bit chubbier than I needed to be or wanted to be. But then I moved in with Liam Plunkett, who obviously you guys have had on recently, international cricketer as well, and complete beast compared to me. But he would drag me to the gym, and I wanted to be as good as I could. And I'm sort of living with this new guy who ended up being a really close friend. Saw that he was an international cricketer, a big, strong, fit guy. So I started training with him quite regularly, and it all happened I got really fit quite quickly. And that carried on for the rest of my Yorkshire career, really. No excuses, really. Quite happy to enjoy your rest day and everything, but always did a little bit more than at training or at the gym, or try and stay for a little bit longer. But then it rubbed off on everyone else as well. People who didn't necessarily like the gym would find themselves going on a day off or doing a little bit extras, and I think that really helped the team improve and get better and win things.
I'm going to say you only went one way when you were all together doing that, didn't it? Success came.
Exactly, yeah.
And living with Puds, the gym work, the fitness drive. Harry wants to know that he says he's doing nutrition at school at the moment. And is there anything that you follow in terms of a plan or a diet? And is that enough?
See you, boys. That'll do. I'm not that strict with my nutrition. There's a time in the year when I do get a bit. Probably now is one of the couple of times in the year when I tend to get a lot stricter with what I'm eating, and tend to just go for really lean, healthy options. I don't really snack on anything that's not fruit or raw veg. And if I end up having a treat, it'll be every sort of 3 or 4 weeks. And I'll try and give up alcohol as well for a long period of time. So that really helps me get into a good physical shape, but also mentally as well. Because in the summers, you're all over the shop eating in different hotels and buses and all sorts. But I think it is massive to look after your nutrition. But as long as you're pretty balanced with it and not scoffing too much rubbish all the time, you can treat yourself as long as you're training properly and eating well around it.
Ben wants to know, would you ever swap a steak for a chicken stir fry?
Well, there's too much red meat. It's probably not good for you, isn't it? So again, it's just balance. So if you're in a restaurant, you see chicken stir fry in the restaurant, then so shouldn't be an issue mixing it up, should it?
Shouldn't be, mate. No, shouldn't be. Jack wants to know, high pressure situations, how do you personally deal with those? I've seen you bowling in some T20s, some tight games, some championship matches where you need to take the last few wickets to get the points, etc. How do you cope with that?
Good strong name, that, Jack, by the way. I love it, Bryce. I mean, you obviously know me better than most now, but I'd much rather play a game of cricket in front of a full house or thousands of people than absolutely no one. You get some things going, it gets something inside me where I just want to, it helps me to compete and sort of feed off the atmosphere a little bit. And I want to show off and entertain. I'm pretty lucky to do this for a living, but playing sport is, you're basically an entertainer, aren't you? So in high pressure situations, I want the ball, I want to bowl. There has been at times when you're younger and you think fear of failure starts to sneak in a little bit, or you'd rather someone else did it. But then, where you're not going to improve, you're not really going to see your true self if you don't put yourself in those situations. You should really enjoy the high pressure situation. If you train properly and you've got your skills right, those high pressure situations should really be not doddle, but you should know what you're doing. You can't help it if you don't always win them, but if you do what you're supposed to do, then more often than not, you'll be all right.
So,
I absolutely love it. It's like it's a bit of a high for me in those situations, especially when it goes well.
so do you try and build that up in practice? Will you set scenarios up either with a batter or even in your own head to then try and replicate those situations and get used?
Yeah, sometimes.
Does happen, you're
Sometimes
in.
when I'm bowling to a batter, sometimes I would say, right, if I get you out, I've won, or if I don't get you out, then I lose. Or I need to set myself a challenge of bowling four maidens at someone in 5 overs or so. Really test myself. It's the same with fielding practice. Like fielding for me is like it's an attitude thing. I need to be switched on, and I can drift a little bit if I'm not at full throttle. And training for me now is I need to have some purpose on it. So I can't go into a fielding practice unless there's a competitive element to it, either with the person I'm training with, or the coach, or whoever's feeding me the ball. So giving me saying I'll give you a coffee if you hit the stumps, or buy you an ice cream if you take 20 catches here and all this. Not necessarily food or drink related, but there's something on it. Or you have a competition with who you're training with. There's 2 or 3 of you.
Yeah.
And it really makes you concentrate then, and actually you remember why you're a sportsman. You just love competing. I can't just go down and play a game of pool or darts with someone without making it competitive as well. I'm really bad at getting competitive, and I hate losing, which you've probably seen before as well.
Yeah. Just on that, talk us through your celebrations. You brought a different sort of celebration to Yorkshire when you took a wicket. You really let the steam go, didn't you, when you took a wicket? I remember you running.
Yeah, there's always a little bit of emotion because I think it's just a release of emotion and happiness and relief. A lot of it that I've done my job, even if I bowled a ropey off volley and they've nicked it. Because I don't really sledge or say a lot when I'm playing, or I don't know, but it all just seems to come out more when I get the wicket more than before. I'm quite a calm individual normally, but I guess I just probably still from that slightly amateur background that I'm playing cricket for a living here. Playing for Yorkshire was a big deal. Getting wickets and winning games of cricket for Yorkshire is huge. It's like a lot of pressure. So that release of pressure when it's going well just comes out. And I don't do it as much now because it knackers me out. I'm too old. But there were times when I'd end up at 3rd man. I remember on my debut actually for Northants, end up at 3rd man twice in the over, and I got 2 wickets in my first over against Australia, and end up at 3rd man both times in front of the crowd. I was like, I can't keep this up for.
Hope I don't get a fifer.
Myself out. It looks a bit silly, but again, it's part of the entertainment, isn't it?
How big was Jason Gillespie for you and your bowling tactic, we say, at Yorkshire? I know he was massive on, which played into your hands really. Pitch it up, hit the knee roll and swing the ball. And it was okay to go for runs, wasn't it? You were a strike bowler. You were going to go for runs, but you were also going to take wickets, and that was fine.
Yeah, I mean, he put just a lot of emphasis on what my clear role was. And he said, you're a wicket taker, you're a strike bowler. I don't care how many runs you go for, just get us wickets. And you will get wickets if you have the process of bowling a knee roll length around off stump and bowl the odd bouncer. He made it very simple. And I'm a pretty simple bloke. If you tell me what to do, I'll do it. I'm not great at working things out. I'm great at being given something to do, and I'll go and do it. And it doesn't matter what it is, I'll do my best to do that. So when one of the world's best cricketers, who played in one of the world's best teams that I watched on TV, puts his arm around me and says I'm brilliant and I'm great, and it says all these nice things about me, and then basically says, right, you do this, it will work, and we'll win games of cricket. And then I used to come off after a game after taking 3, 4, 5 wickets, and I look at him, he'd laugh, and he would have a beer with me, and he goes, brilliant, keep it up. And then if it didn't go so well, again, the arm around me, I might have been whacked for 10 overs or however many overs and been really annoyed at, I haven't really offered much to the team here. But he said, don't worry, sun will come up again tomorrow. You'll just as likely to get 3 or 4 wickets and we'll probably be in a good position again. And it's exactly what happened every time. I can't stress how many times it happened through my whole of my career at Yorkshire when Dizzy was in charge. He was the best man manager, and he just made things so simple. He knew how to win, so he knew to set out winning plans. You get the right people in the right places, in the right jobs, then you're going to have success. And you had little old me who just had a very simple plan, and it's worked. And I still pretty much work to the same things these days.
Well, if it ain't broke. Just your self-awareness there, where you've said, I'm a pretty simple bloke. If you tell me what to do, I'll go away and do it to the best of my ability. Have you never therefore got involved in all of the tactical thoughts and plans, and you just like, look, I know my role, I'm a workhorse. And if that is the case, at what age did you realise that was your role? Because I know you get many personalities in a cricket team, but for you to realise your role is very important. When did that happen? When were you mature enough to accept that?
I don't know when I was mature enough to accept it. I mean, at Northants, I had mixed roles because I was one of their best bowlers. They used to use me as the wicket taker and also to try and dry the runs up when things weren't going so well. I ended up on loads more overs and breaking down after the season. It wasn't the best role for me though. Whereas at Yorkshire, they used me precisely for one role and it worked. So I mean, I'll quite happily adapt and do different things. And if someone gives me a role, I'll do it. It might not be the best one suited to me, but if it's the best one for the team, then I'll accept it and have to do it. So I think the main thing, if you're going to be in a team, whatever role you're given, you need to be able to do that to the best of your ability and do your best for the team. It might not always be what's best for you, but if you keep doing it, then you may end up doing what you want to do eventually anyway.
Yeah. We've got some good questions here. Jack, we've had that one. We've covered that. What motivates you? What's the best piece of advice you've got from talking to other players? So we know in the county game that after a day's play or after the game has finished, you enjoy having a beer maybe, and then talking about cricket, which is an going out of the game. So what's the best bit of info you've got from another player, whether it be during a game or even after it?
Yeah, I love talking to the opposition or other people in cricket about cricket because it's how you improve, how you get better. You pick up little bits of information that you might not have thought of before. It's the beauty for me for playing for 3 different teams as well, is different environments, different coaches, different attitudes. You know, if someone plays for Yorkshire their whole life, they're institutionalised by what the Yorkshire method is. I was very lucky to be an outsider going up there with ways of doing things, but I love the Yorkshire way and the mentality for a lot of things. But then obviously you move on to Somerset, a different team that go about things in a slightly different way. You remind yourself that, yeah, it's not all of what Yorkshire do is great in every environment. I think it's just important to socialise as much as you can with, like, after games in the pavilion. I think it's quite sad in a way that it's died out. I don't know, like amateur cricket, people tend to shoot off quite quickly after games as well. I think part of the game is to hang around with your mates, opposition, for a beer or two and have a bit, or whatever you want to drink or what have you, but just talk cricket, improve and have a laugh. And at the pro game, it's almost non-existent now. You're never going to pick up these little snippets of information unless you approach someone and try and see someone during the game or after the game, and you've got a very limited time frame to do that as well. I'm a bit of a sponge. I love talking. I'm a bit of a badger at times, so I'll never shy away from trying to talk. I remember when Don Bess, we played against Notts here in Taunton a couple of years ago, and I think Don was 12th man actually. He was playing. So I remember we won the game, and Ashwin was playing for Notts, the overseas player. Probably the best off spinner in the world, isn't he? Especially a couple of years ago. Bessie, up and coming off spinner. He'd already played for England, been out of the team, wanted to get better. He could see that there was another off spinner in the opposition change room who was probably going to have a lot to say to him about stuff. So Bessie made sure he grabbed him at the end and went and sat in the change room next to him. And whilst all the Notts lads were getting ready to leave and getting on the bus, and Ashwin sat there with him for about 45 minutes, just talking bowling, talking and saying, give him his number, and if you're ever in India, all this. And obviously now Bessie's back in the England team, bowling in India and Ashwin out. And Bessie's a sponge. He wants to get better. He'll approach the people who he thinks will help him do that. And players want to help other players, really. No one really holds back and doesn't say anything.
What stuck with you? Which player's given you a nugget that's still with you?
It's not always technical stuff for me. A lot of it for me is making me feel good and just keeping it, again, like real simple. For me, it's staying relaxed and enjoying the game. you'll only improve and get better if you're enjoying the game. If you're turning up every week to play cricket and it's a bit of a chore and you're not really enjoying the people you're playing with or where you're playing, how are you going to improve? Whereas if you're in an environment where you're really loving it and you love playing cricket, you will turn up every time and you'll want to get better. Guarantee it. And you'll be a lot more relaxed.
There's a few wanting to know, mate, what is your favourite moment on a cricket pitch?
The two things that stick with me was my first class debut, because it was against Australia. They were touring at the time in the 09 Ashes series. I was at Northants, and we were one of the pre-series games, I think it was. And bear in mind, I was 24 years old, only been a pro for a few months, played a few twos games, done well, and then I got the nod to make my first class debut against Australia, against Shane Watson, Mike Hussey, Phil Hughes, Simon Katic, Mitchell Johnson, Peter Siddle. These are legends. Ponting, Michael Clark, Brett Lee were all in the squad, not playing, unfortunately. But I was like, these guys are watching TV. These are actual legends of the game, some of these people. And I'm playing cricket against them. And I went from playing against county second teams at outgrounds in front of 3 men and a dog and a bus driver to 6,000 people at Northants for 3 days. Wow. And I did not sleep much for 3 days. I'd probably had a few too many drinks the night before just to try and steady myself. I was so excited. I got 2 wickets in an over to get my career off. A clean bowled Andrew McDonald ended up at third man, and a couple of balls later, I nicked off Mitchell Johnson, ended up at third man again. And I think just the feelings and the emotions I got from that game. It's like your childhood ambition, you live in your dream, playing professional cricket, and I'm making my debut in an atmosphere which you're only really going to get in international level, which I was never going to get to. And I'm sure Wayne remembers his debut, and he'll remember his first wicket. He'll remember the emotions and the feelings he went through, and it will stay with you forever, no matter what you achieve in your career, I think. And then the other one, which was a lot of euphoria and relief again, was the first championship win for Yorkshire at Trent Bridge, when we eventually won the trophy against Notts. It was unbelievable. It was the first time I cried during or after a cricket game since I was probably about 11, just because I'd achieved something that I'd set out to do since I was a kid, and I never knew if I was going to be able to do it or not. And there was loads of grown men around me doing exactly the same. Playing for Yorkshire would overdue a trophy, and how much it meant to so many people, like players, support staff, supporters. It's a very demanding public up there, aren't they?
Yeah.
For us to achieve that with a solid bunch of guys as well, that I'm still really good friends with a large number of those guys. And the emotion just got the better of me at times during that sort of last 24-hour period. But we backed up again the next year, and it was special, but it wasn't quite as special as the first one.
There's a couple of things that have sprung to my mind. One of them, actually, CT's just texted me and says, gutted that you didn't mention opening the bowling with him at Semwas Park in South Africa. So he's disappointed. And
well, that was pretty special for other reasons. I've spent a lot of time with CT off field, and to see him improve quite considerably over the space of 24 months.
Yeah.
And grow as a man as well in those trips. It was fantastic.
Absolutely. And the other one that sticks in my mind, mate, is a lot of these kids may have seen Joe Root do this, but what they might not know is you were the actual original mic drop bat celebration when you got 100. Do you just want to talk us through what happened there? Because that is one of my all-time favourite clips of you.
So everyone knows what a mic drop is, isn't it? It's not really seen in cricket, but for some reason, I have no idea why, when I got my first class 100, I did a bat drop when I got my 100, and I did punch the air and kiss the badge and raise my bat, a few fist pumps and stuff, but first thing I did was drop my bat on purpose. I looked like a right clown. So I had a bit of stick for that, but I think I've got away with it just because I was like a tail ender, a bit of an idiot. People know who I am and my celebrations and stuff. It didn't really matter.
And then
But
Rooty
then
nicked your gag,
Rooty,
didn't he?
a couple of months later against India at Headingley, when he got 100, did it in front of Kohli, didn't he, and in front of Western Terrace. So it's a bit different when you're one of England's prominent cricketers and I think Test captain. And he got a decent amount of stick for it. Also, people loved it because it's Rooty and he's brilliant. But I did say to him, mate, my one thing I'm going to be remembered for, my only 100 I've ever got is a bat drop. And then you go and do it a few months later and everyone's talking about you're the only person ever to have done it. And he was apologetic. He was almost a bit ashamed that he'd done it because he was like, I don't know what I was thinking doing it. It's not something I planned. I was like, no, it wasn't. I didn't either, to be honest. But yeah, no, I wouldn't do it again.
That's all.
Enough,
Because I've got the message that says
if
I get 100 tomorrow, I'm going to do a bat drop. You planned.
Did I say? I didn't actually say that.
You
I'm pretty
planned
sure
that.
I
I know you planned that. So Noah wants to know, how do you won the championship for the second time? You've just mentioned it wasn't as special. Relive the first one then. So you've gone through all that.
It was special for different reasons. We won it at Cantor as well, so it wasn't quite as nervy. The main reason why it was really special was because we started the season with 5 lads in the England squad, Gailey banned, City getting injured, so we were up against it, and everyone was saying, "Oh, team who wins it usually goes down or struggles the next year." So we just went into that season with like, right, we'll show this lot. Even with our young lads coming into the team, we're just very confident, and we turned over some good teams early season. We got to mid-season, and Johnny Bairstow played how I don't think I've ever seen him play as well, like as consistent. And it's no surprise now that he's whacking internationals everywhere because he averaged 100 over about 8 or 9 games for us. He scored nearly 1,000 runs in that many games. So he basically won us the league with the amount of runs he scored. And our bowlers just run through teams. And it was special, don't get me wrong. I'm saying it's not as special, but the first one is just always that little bit more special, I think.
Nice. We've had a question, mate. I'm just going to go back a little bit. Aidan Gordon Edwards has asked, how did the opportunity to play grade cricket in Australia come about?
Okay, so I was 19 playing village cricket, and our overseas player that year was a guy who was from Perth, an Aussie guy who was sort of mid to late 20s. And I got quite friendly with him all summer. He ended up living with my family for a bit, and he did say to me, he was like, because I did want to go and play in Australia at some point. Play a club season out there, just get away, have a bit of a travel, gap year sort of thing. And he said, well, if you want to come to Perth, let me know. You can come and live with me, set you up with my club, get yourself a visa, and you get a job and all that, and you'll be dandy. So I ended up doing that for 7 months, and played. I think I started playing 3rd grade, the 4th grades. So it's a good standard, and it's very intense. And they train twice a week, and it's good quality cricketers, a few pros kicking around. We had an English guy in each grade, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. And I started in 3rds, and the guy in the 4th was a Kent Premier League cricketer. There was me in the 3rds. I don't think there was anyone in the 2nds at the time, but in the A grade was a 20-year-old opening batsman who'd played 17 first-class games, I think, over 2 years previous. Guy called Alistair Cook, who I think hadn't really done a lot at the time. And so I was training with this professional cricketer as a pretty clubby 19-year-old. Didn't really know this bloke. He was saying he played 17. I just remember him telling me he played 17 first-class games. I was like, all right, mate, nice one. And got quite friendly with him and just seeing how a professional goes about their business. And then I go back to England that summer, go back to village cricket, tear it up. Think I'm doing pretty well. And this other Cook bloke plays a tour game against Australia for Essex and gets a double 100 or something, and then he ends up playing for England a year later on his debut and scores 100 in India. And well, we all know what he's done now, but yeah, it was a pretty cool experience because grade cricket is really tough, and you always get English pros who are loitering around some clubs as well, getting some practice out there as well. So just a great experience getting away from home, growing up, being independent, toughening up, playing tough cricket. And if you're lucky, you build sort of lifelong friendships with decent blokes who are good cricketers.
Absolutely, fully recommend it, as I'm sure you will. Who was your most challenging opponent to bowl against? Anyone you've really struggled with?
I've bowled some pretty good cricketers in my time. But the best the best batters I've bowled at are Kevin Peterson, Kumar Sangakkara. They're on just a different level. I've been lucky to play with Kane Williamson, and I did play against him right at the beginning of his career. And I played against Root and Bairstow before, again right at the beginning of their career. But Peterson and Sangakkara in their pomp were special. They just play the game differently to everyone else.
Yeah.
Alistair Cook, just because he's pure class and he doesn't take you apart like a Peterson would or a Sangakkara would. He takes you apart slowly over a long period of time, doesn't give you a sniff. And your small margin for error gets even smaller. And they're just like, once you bowl to those guys, you're like, yeah, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am.
Guys, if you've got any other questions, just stick them in the chat, please. We'll take off the floor. Most talented cricketer you've played with? You've just named some very good ones there, but who's your top? Who's your top?
Some special, like Williamson and Root are the two best batters I've played with. But actual ability and all-round ability, and just someone who does things very well that's difficult. Adil Rashid and Glenn Maxwell are two of the freakishly talented cricketers that I've ever played with. They were capable of doing things, and still are capable of doing things, that win you a game out of nowhere, that just weren't as consistent as you'd liked, especially Maxwell. Whereas Rash has gone on to become best white ball spinner in the world for a long period of time. But when I joined Yorkshire, he batted 6, was your spin bowler, and he used to field in the slips as well. And he used to get, I've played with him, I batted with him, he's got hundreds before, and then he goes and gets 5 wickets to win the game as well. Best all-rounder in the country when he can be bothered, when he wanted to. And he's just so talented, like being a leg spinner. If any leg spinners are on, you know how difficult it is to be that good, to get the best players in the world out consistently. You've seen Rash up close, haven't you? He's, as good as you're going to get, talented cricket-wise.
Yeah, Green has been in with them all this winter. Winners is in. Ben's in next week. They just call him a genius. Just literally like a wizard.
And the thing is with him, he doesn't know it. Well, he knows it, I think, but he's just so blasé with it. It's almost just so natural. He couldn't almost tell you how he does it. But he's brilliant because he trains so hard, and he comes in, he does his work and goes. He's a great bloke to have in the team.
There's screens between them, isn't there? You can't see them.
Oh, aye.
Just mute your microphones, everyone, please. Brooksy, who is the fastest bowler you've ever faced? Hector wants to know. I think he's still worried about Greeny's side arming.
Fastest. I faced Mark Wood, Liam Plunkett, Steve Finn, Tamal Mills. Jamie Overton's quite sharp. Stuart Broad bowled a quick spell at me, hit me on the head once. I've only been hit on the head once in first class cricket, and it was Stuart Broad of it, man. It just glanced me. Couldn't get out of the way of it quick enough.
He's tall and in that bounce will do you.
Yeah, just headbutted it for one.
Come on. I like this one. Who's your favourite teammate to play with and why? We'll go on the field. The field. I want an answer for each.
Well, my best mate in cricket is Liam Plunkett, and we just got a relationship where we play hard, very serious on field, with the enjoyment factor. But off field, when you've got your best mate sat next to you in the chain, you can enjoy some special moments in your career with your best mates around you. Makes it even better. So, I mean, I've been quite lucky that I've made some really good friends at a lot of different teams. And even now, I've only been here for 3 years, but I've got some good friends in the Somerset team now. Different time in my life, though, I'm a bit more of some of them call me granddad or daddy now because I'm the oldest in the squad, and a lot of them are sort of early, mid-20s now. But
CT's nickname from tour.
Happens to the best of us, doesn't it?
It does. I'm getting there. Ryan's asked, what's your mindset after a game? How do you review a game? Either if it's gone well or if it's gone poorly, do you spend a lot of time mulling it over? Do you just think about the positives? Do you learn from what you could do better? How do you go about that?
Is Ryan Arif's son?
I believe so, yes.
Hi, Ryan. Say hello to your dad for me. My mindset after a game. Generally pretty positive. I always reflect after the game and see, even if it's a win, I think it's important to review after a game as much as it is a loss. Because obviously with a loss, you can get a bit too like, oh, what went wrong? And getting too negative and worrying about everything all the time. It's important, but best to get out of the way, put it to bed, either write it down or discuss it with the team or whoever. But same with winning as well. Don't just get back and shake hands and have a drink and have a little 2 minutes either before you get celebrating for a chat or what have you, or that night or the next morning, just write some things down about what worked well, how did it feel. For me, it's all about feel. You know, how did it feel when I bowled really well then?
So have you got a diary now? Have you got a journal from the last few years that you can revert back to?
No, I wish I had. I honestly wish I had. One of my things I do look back on is having a diary or a journal over my whole career, and not just to remind myself of good memories and funny stories and stuff, but also to have gone over my career and almost pat yourself on the back a bit more than you probably take. I haven't really had a chance to sit back and do that yet. I think because my career is still going. It's one thing I've learned is to try and try and enjoy my success a little bit more.
Yeah.
Rather than just move on.
Werners, did you keep a diary of like a journal, or is that something that's coming a little bit later since you've finished?
Well, I think looking back, I think I've still got some notes somewhere when I was like 16, 17, 18, playing on the academy, writing down like how I felt when I bowled. If I felt good or bad, I'd write it down and sort of try and see if there's any pattern that cropped up. So as a young cricketer, I definitely did that. And then as I got older, started to add in the opposition. If you keep seeing the same faces week in, week out, you're like, does this guy sweep or not? Where's his strong areas? And even if it then became mental notes, because you kept seeing him that often, but it's a different way of logging what you want, whether it's yourself or the opposition room.
Nice. Brooksy, can you see this chat? I like this one from Lewis. If you had your time again at Yorkshire, what would you do anything differently?
I don't think so, but I don't like to have regrets in my life anyway. I generally don't think I'd have done anything different. I couldn't have done anything more. I joined Yorkshire to win trophies and to play for England, give myself the best chance to play for England. I won trophies, and I couldn't have physically, performances-wise, done much more to put myself in line to play for England. I would love to have stayed, but it was the right decision to leave, and I wouldn't have changed that. And I love my time there. So no, it was a very good time. I was actually texting Johnny Bairstow last night, and he was on the plane over to India. And one of the first things he said to me was he'd been thinking about that time when we won the trophies and how special it was, and it'd be good to have to get the lads together for a bit of a catch up or something. But I'm sure we will at some point in our lives have a few decent little catch ups.
Like to be a fly on wall for that one. Who do you find the most annoying player to play against? Who winds you up the most?
I don't get easily annoyed on field, to be honest. I'm probably an annoyance more than anyone else.
Who's your nemesis then? Who's your rival?
No one really winds me up. Like generally, like I find it harder to play against friends than people I dislike. I don't really dislike anyone in the game because you play against each other so often.
Slow waitresses, they're a problem for you, aren't they?
I've learned not to give it out too much, and I don't really say much anyway. I'm quite quiet on field in terms of sledging. I might say something if it's funny or relevant, but I don't say anything abusive. I learned that because I remember bowling against Mark Stoneman at Scarborough once, and Durham took us down. I was getting a bit gobby. I think I was just getting frustrated, and I got gobby, and he just crashed me for 4. And instead of just standing there and watching it go to the boundary and whatnot, he ran past me and tapped his bat in at the crease at the non-strikers end as I'm walking past, and he just went under his breath. Cheers, Brooksy. And so I was just like, yeah, I should probably just rein it in. I hated feeling like that. Even though bowlers get more chances, batters probably will need to stay quieter more than bowlers. It just made me think, yeah, I need to probably just pull my neck in a little bit.
Yeah. Sound advice. When you are limited to just the garden, what sort of things should you be doing? Dougie, I think Ben's got a load of advice on that, mate. If you go on our YouTube channel, there's loads of videos on there to help you. I know it's tough, and gardens, garages, front rooms, just to stay active. But Brooksy, what would you have been doing as a kid if you just had the garden?
You know what? When I the game I played at home was cricket in the hall, and our hallway and kitchen sort of was 2 rooms, but it was like a corridor going into the kitchen. And me and my brother used to play for hours, and the stumps was like this, my little school rucksack, and because I'm bowling basically through a door frame, and it was only about 10 yards, 15 yards, whatever. And I was basically growing up learning to bowl at a tiny target through a tiny target, basically like a door frame. If you look at now, when people pick cones and boards up of got to try and bowl through this area, I was doing that from the age of 5 through till not 25, because I wasn't living at home then, but stopped playing cricket in the hall when I was a kid. Playing as an adult. And
Of course you did.
but no, looking back, my dad and brother used to say it to me as well. The reason you're so accurate is because you had such a small target to aim at. You were able to bowl properly, and then my brother was only able to throw because it was obviously the ceiling and stuff. You were bowling properly at a small target through like a really small target without realizing it, and obviously you just grooved your technique. So whenever you're practicing, make it purposeful and test yourself, I suppose. Get the basics right, but try and test yourself.
Yeah, that's good. Stick to the basics for now, Dougie, and then when the season comes around, we can get outside. Everything else will flourish. But at this point, Jack, can we just say that we have not just told everyone to go and bowl indoors, down the corridor, at doors or anything like that. So parents, we apologise, but that's not what Jack...
Yeah, I broke a large number of strip lights and mugs and all sorts. Drove my parents potty.
Yeah, we won't be doing that. Favourite country to play in, Jack?
I've got an affinity for Australia just because of that grade season, my first grade season. I've been back 4 times more as well to play out there. I've really enjoyed my time in South Africa. I think the pitches are fantastic. The people love their cricket. The weather and the pitches promote good cricket and good fast bowling as well. If you're a fast bowler, try and get yourself on a pro coach trip to South Africa, and you think you're bowling like Ben Stokes up. So.
We've got this is a good one here. I think it's from Tom. If you could get coached by one player in the world, who would it be?
If I could get coached by one player?
That's what he's asked.
Good question. I've never been asked that before. I'd love to have been coached by Goffey at some point, as one of my heroes and a Yorkshireman himself. But he never took up the offers to come in and coach the lads, which was a shame. I'd love that. But modern-wise, I'd love to do a bit of bowling with someone like a Pat Cummins, just to pick their brain.
It's unbelievable. You've got a couple wanting to know your favourite ground, mate. I think I know that one.
Favourite ground?
Yeah.
Got a reasonable record at Lords, and the food's the best, and it's special. And we won our second title there at Yorkshire as well. Headingley was awesome for me as a fast bowler. I love bowling at Headingley in the atmosphere and when the crowd got up and about. And Scarborough's pretty cool as well.
A good record there.
Fish and chips. You have.
No, you have. Team have, haven't they? It's a stronghold.
But Lords, you can't really beat Lords, can you?
As a bowler, what type of ball would you use in order to trouble a batsman? I'm assuming what type of delivery? I know that's very specific.
I think you just try and bowl your best ball as often as you can. The longer you can bowl your best ball, the better you'll be and the higher standard you'll play. And then you think about your variations after that. But your best ball is hitting top of off 3/4 away off stump. The longer you do that, the longer you're able to do that for, the better cricketer, the better bowler you'll be.
Brilliant. In your pomp, you know, when you won the Champos and you were getting 50, 60 wickets at ease, it seemed, every year, did you feel you were good enough to get in the England Test side?
Not initially, because you have that, particularly me, who wasn't that arrogant or confident in himself. Until I've achieved something, I don't believe I can necessarily do it. So because you're looking on the outside in, you look at the England team and the people that are in that team. Bear in mind, when I was at my pomp for a 3 or 4 year period, England's Test team hardly changed, and their seamers were Batsman, Anderson, Broad, Tremlett, Finn, Wokes. Like, some really good bowlers weren't playing, and they had Swan, so they basically only played 3 seamers. So I'm trying to take the place of Bresnan, who also bats 8, Anderson and Broad, who are England's 2 best ever seamers, and you got little me like thinking, how the hell am I going to get anywhere near this team? But when you're told by coaches in the England setup and players in the England setup, and I was in and around that setup for a while, when you're told you're good enough, you just got to either wait your chance or force your way in through sheer weight of wickets, which I was doing anyway. You kind of think, right, I think there was one season where I actually thought, I'm going to play for England here if I keep getting wickets. So I was that confident. It never happened, but I started to believe for the first time in my career that I was actually good enough.
That must be a nice feeling, having that to aim for. I'm going to put
it is, but you don't want to get ahead of yourself.
Last question. Funniest story from cricket. Can be on the field or off the field. Up to you. Finish with that.
Oh, I've got to think of appropriate ones. I can think of one that was a famous one at Yorkshire with Adil Rashid. When he was starting out, so I wasn't actually involved at the time, but when he was starting out, Yorkshire were playing an away game on the way to Morgan for a one-day game, I think it was. And Anthony McGrath was, I think, might have been captain, but he was certainly one of the senior players on the bus.
Wayner's nodding. Wayner's is smiling here.
Wayner's might be involved in this, but it just makes me laugh. Just because I know Rash so well, it's brilliant. And Mags went down the bus and was basically, it was to stitch Rash up, but was asking everyone if they had their passports on them because they were going into Wales to play Glamorgan. You need your passport to get into Wales, apparently. And Rash, being Rash, believed him, didn't realise he needed his passport, but also didn't have his passport on him. So Mags was basically saying to him, well, when we stop in Wales, they're going to come on and they'll take you to the police station, or they won't let you into. You won't be able to play. So you better go and hide in the toilet. So Rash went into the toilet on the bus, and they must have stopped at like a service station or something. Anyway, they got Mags or someone else went down the bus pretending to be the passport inspector, knocking on the toilet door. Is anyone in there? No. Rash absolutely papping himself that he wasn't going to get that in. He's not the smartest, but bless him, but he's a very funny man. But it's just things like that just make me wet myself, but also like build team morale up as well. I don't know. I'm sure that story will be told for you many years.
It's a classic, absolute classic. Fondest memory, Brooksy, last one. Fondest memory of bowling spell. So when something's clicked, the rhythm's right, and you've either run through a side or you've got an absolute gun batter out.
There are certain spells where you just feel on fire and you think you're going to get a wicket every ball, and I still have spells like that now. There's probably like a month period during the season where if I've been playing consistently, my body just feels good and I'm in a rhythm. I don't even need to warm up that much. I just know where the ball's going. And if I'm on one, then I'm getting wickets. And that happens every season, and I'm quite lucky to feel like that, because when I'm out of form or injured, it's harder to get to that level. But there are certain spells. One spell that sticks in my mind that's, I reckon, settled me into my Yorkshire career was playing Derbyshire at Headingley in my first season. I can't remember if it was 2013 or 2014. If Wayners was playing or not. But Chesney Hughes got like 270 not out. Were you playing, Wayners? Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chesney Hughes was, reasonable cricketer, but played an absolute innings of doom. So we knew we had to get a massive score in the second innings to, get ahead of them and try and bowl them out. And then Root and Bairstow put on thousands, in fact 400 or something. Root, he got a double, Bairstow got 180. And we ended up having to try and bowl them out on the last day at Headingley. And I can't remember what we would have set them, like 200 and something, I think. But after tea, they were like 5 or 6 down, and it was looking like it might drift to a draw. But the ball just started reversing, and I was expecting like Bresnan or side bottom or someone to bowl after lunch, after tea, and they threw me the ball. I hadn't really done anything at this point in my career there. And I was still quite new to it, a little bit nervy, and he threw me the ball and said, "You got first over," and I got a wicket in the first over. And then we just got the next 3 or 4 so quickly. The game was over within about 40 minutes after tea. We were back in the change room, and I ended up with like 5 wicket haul or something, and one of my first home games at Headingley. Couldn't believe it, but it sort of helped me settle into my Yorkshire career a little bit. And sort of carried on from there, really, in those sort of spells that I was capable of.
Perfect. Mate, you've been an absolute beaut. Thank you very much for the insight. Very, very kind of you to give your time up. I appreciate it a lot. I'm sure everyone else does on the call. We've taken up enough of your time. So, Jack Brooks, you've been an absolute beaut. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Bryce. Cheers, everyone. Have a nice weekend. Hope everyone's well. Look after yourselves.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.